a little chaotic. We had so many ideas coming at us, so we apologize for the discombobulated of it. No, I think we're okay. That's good. So what ours is a podcast, and we thought of the name True Story or True Talk. We were like debating between the two. And this is obviously the medium is a podcast, and it's going to create a safe space for people to just come and share their experience, their lived experience, have a conversation with the podcast host in a safe place that we can bring up the barriers of what they went through, maybe seeking help, what they had to deal with. We're going to talk about all kinds of things like that, so that we can bring up the topics that we need to find solutions for, and hopefully come to a solution while we're discussing them. And I think a lot of dang healing comes from having a conversation and in a safe place. So the idea is to sign a waiver, cover all the grounds where the person sharing is feeling safe, right? And then they feel safe with what they've shared. And it's just gonna be such a safe place that everybody watching is gonna feel safe. Like it's gonna inspire so much change, I think, because that is something we lack in society, right? Is feeling safe. Like I think we all feel safe in here because we have similar ideas. We think the same. We've been through some same shit, so we feel safe together. And that's the idea. And so to do this, we're gonna have to center it around lived experience. Yeah, but we all. I'm gonna want to speak here.
Oh, good. I love it. Love to hear it. Yeah, so we want to do a podcast. The whole podcast is centered around people sharing their lived experiences, allowing people to have a platform to sort of share that, but also encouraging people to feel united through the experiences that people have. Yeah, disabilities, different disabilities, mental health crisis, struggles you've had.
So we had, just for instance, sorry, I just thought of something really important though. We had somebody at our table who was deaf, and she had an interpreter, and it was extremely insane to watch what she had gone through. And she shared that when she went to the hospital, she did not have an interpreter, and it was very traumatizing for her because how do you share, right? That's terrible. We have a language barrier because of our trauma, not allowing us to express ourselves, but she literally can't. So if we speak about stuff like that, hospitals will then maybe pick up on that and fill in the blanks. These are the barriers that we need to be, I think there's so much power in discussion, right? If we get it out, then the solution will come. And so we're hoping that, we can get disabled people on this podcast where they can share their experience of what they went through, and people who have solutions out there can come and trickle in. Doctors obviously don't want to look bad. So if we share that, they'll be oh, we need to get interpreters. So just bringing awareness, and then also inspiring and connecting. And people love to be able to relate. So having somebody speak about their trauma, and then the people watching the podcast to relate to that, that's healing the person watching who is maybe silenced by their trauma. And then we want to also, this is how it's going to last, because we're going to bring in a community where the people who maybe have shared their stories on the podcast can come and share how they're doing now, so that we can show that the healing does continue, and it's not, they're not just stagnant in their trauma and whatever. And then we can, yeah. Okay, now.
Yeah, so the collective vision for the podcast, or the prototype, is so, podcast is a place for people to share their experiences. The podcast is the main focus, but there's going to be other avenues in which people hear about the podcast. So we discussed a Discord group, as well as a Facebook group, and then also local events for people to share their experience. It's aimed to serve people in our community, so I feel like it's very important that we keep this local. So a podcast could have the capacity to be larger, but I think it's important that we keep it local to the Middlesex and surrounding communities. And in that way is why it's also innovative, because it is a direct need here. There might be podcasts for mental health on a larger scale, but maybe not in our community. It does have a plan for engaging people with lived experience. I mean, that's the whole point. However, we want people with lived experiences to come on, but we also feel it's very important to get practitioners discuss their experience, because a lot of the times, they may not be able to share like where they see like faults in the system to discuss and where that could be addressed. This could be sustainable in the long term, you know, it's important that we plan ahead for podcasts. You know, lots of people that have different stories, but it's, you know, with any kind of social media, it's important to plan ahead so that you can keep a schedule consistent and also finding places to get more stories from people. The prototype supports equity, diversity, inclusion, and decolonization, with trauma-informed care and cultural safety, because one of the things we discussed that in the process of getting people onto the podcast, having some kind of form ahead of time, and let them know, like, is there anything you don't want us to talk about? Is this triggering for you? How can we better accommodate you? So, like we discussed with someone on our team, like making sure that, like, if we need an interpreter, that is taken care of on our end, so that it's easier for people to come in and share their story. And then also afterwards, like having some kind of feedback form, asking like, how can we better improve your experience? The other thing we talked about here is, you know, if successful, what would change in the system? This would make, one, like sharing your stories less stigmatized. Hopefully it would also give people more education as to like where in all of this, like we could better improve our systems, as well as making people who have these experiences feel more welcome and warm and included in their community. So I think that's all.